Morning, everybody. This is Charles Owen from Paladin. Welcome. Give it another minute or so for other people to get logged in. We've got a big group today. Appreciate y'all attending. Just to make sure that you can hear me okay and see my screen okay, if you could raise your hands. Thank you, Brian and others. I appreciate that. We're good. Yeah, let me know. You can shoot questions out to me or chat with me as well. Those are two options that we can communicate. If you have any questions during this webinar, you can go ahead and put the questions in the question box, and I'll answer those at the end of our time together watching the presentation. So yeah, like I said, just stall another few seconds here until we get some other folks on. Looks like we've got a lot of people logging in right now. So yes, so again, appreciate your time. I'm excited today. We're going to talk about how Paladin makes lumber easy. We have a number of features in here. Whether you've been with Paladin a long time or you're a new customer or you're a prospect looking at Paladin, there's just a lot of different options we have. We're not going to show you everything in the system, nor are we going to show you everything that we can do for lumber, but we're going to show you the obvious, the easy things that will really help streamline your day when it comes to working with lumber and building materials. So again, my name is Charles Owen. I appreciate you coming to the Paladin University to see our presentation today. We're going to take about 25 to 30 minutes today, I would imagine. So if you have any interruptions, we are recording this. You can always watch it at a different time. And if you find this valuable, please share it with your coworkers, and they can watch it anytime. It should be posted on the portal.paladinpos.com/webinars site probably in the next 24 to 48 hours typically. All right, with that, again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the question box. We'll answer those as we go through this. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so what we're going to learn today is, number one, we're going to talk about how the lumber industry has changed, how it's just been a wild ride here over the last, not only 1 year, but a couple years, right? And then we'll go over some of the Paladin tools that make lumber easy, like the profit analyst, footage calculators. We've added a recent one, how we deal with 1,000 board foot, 1,000 square foot, and so on. We're going to talk about how we can protect your margins and not pierce that threshold of profitability. And then we'll show you about custom pricing that you can do with your contractors, how we manage, we have the order manager for lumber. I'll share that with you, and special orders, yard orders, things also on the mobile front we'll be discussing. So how have things changed? Well, we have some interesting facts here. You know, the industry, the lumber industry in general has taken a beating over the past few years, you know, starting with the U.S.-China trade war, the hurricanes, wildfires, coronavirus pandemic, of course, have crippled the industry. Exports decreased and mills cut production, which caused major supply chain issues, right? So from April to September of last year, lumber prices increased 170%, which raised building costs up to $16,000 per single family home and created a lumber shortage. No stopping of development, though. It's interesting. I see a lot of development happening around here in Central Oregon, and I've heard also in other areas. So even though the prices have gone up, it seems like there's still a demand out there, which is the good news. Additionally, when American workers began working from home, the purchases kind of changed a little bit, right? One survey showed that more than 70% of Americans began home improvement projects after the initial pandemic quarantine. Pretty amazing, right? Deck construction, interestingly enough, increased about 275% just from March to June. Why is that? Well, I think a lot of people wanted to get outside, right? They didn't want to be hunkered down in their house. They want to extend that out to the outdoors. Also, fence construction. What do you read into that? About 144% increase during the same period for fence construction. We trying to block out the neighbors? What's going on there? It's kind of interesting. And then lumber prices peaked at roughly $950 per 1,000 board feet in September. Wow, lots going on. So this is a testimonial from one of our customers, Josh. He is local here, and he's got a local business. What he says is Paladin's lumber tools were what attracted him. He uses them extensively, he said. So this is just kind of a testimony to how lumber is different. It's just a different world, right? You've got the hardware, mainly over-the-counter kind of purchases, cash and carry type of things, where lumber is just a different world altogether. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's get into some of the features. This is the fun stuff, right? So profit analysis, if you haven't discovered this feature, you're missing out. I'll tell you that. It is a tremendous tool for salespeople to sit down across the table from their contractors and be able to just look at an invoice as they're creating a quote and determine whether or not it's palatable. Will it, is there still profit left in this deal? Well, I know we have to give away some of the products, but can't we make profit on some other ones? The answer is yes. And all you have to do is hold down the Alt key and press A, or go to the right click on any item and hit Profit Analyst. And that brings up a pop-up box that shows you each of the current lines that the red bar is highlighted on. And then below that, you've got your invoices total. So you have your aggregate total. In this case, the current line is $10 cost, $200 profit, 66. I'm sorry. I think that is a $10 cost, $200 profit. Yeah, 66.7% margin. And the one below that shows the aggregate of the entire invoice, which is a little bit lower. There's a little higher profit involved, adding a second line item. All right. So this is again, it's a great tool. If you haven't used it in the past, you have to get access to it. So your manager or your owner is going to have to activate this for you in the employee tab. So if you go to the employee access to turn it on, you just bring up File Setup Employees, and you'll have to do this as a manager because there's also permissions tied to the menu setup. In the bottom right-hand corner is a little button there that says Profit Analyst, activate or don't activate. This is a touchy, right? You don't necessarily want all cashiers to have availability to the cost of every item and the profit of every item, right? So you want to limit this to just those trusted salespeople, owners, managers, and that sort of thing. But it is a phenomenal tool if you haven't discovered it. Footage calculator, it's been around for a while. It's Control K to bring it up on the screen when you're in invoice and quoting. It is also accessible by right-clicking and hit Footage Calculator, and it lets you tally up items by just defining the different lengths of items and wood, molding, that sort of thing. And it's intended for items that are sold by the linear foot. And you can just put in the total number of pieces, how long it is, how many feet, how many inches. It tallies everything up and gives you the appropriate extended cost or price. You'll see here at the bottom, once you bring up an item and you add that to it, it's going to show you the description at the bottom will show I have 10 at 8 feet, 8 at 4 foot 6 inches. The square footage calculator has been added, so when you right click now, you'll see another item called square footage calculator, and this is for the width in both feet and inches and the length in both feet and inches. And this will do the same function. We'll tally it up and give you the appropriate extended price. That is going to also show you the description. You can see down below at the very bottom. If we move to the invoice, it shows on the note field 20 at 1 by 8 inches. Okay, so we'll continue here. Subtotals on quotes and invoices. So there's a lot of times where you might create a rather lengthy quote, right? You're building a bid for somebody and they want to separate out different items in different sections of the invoice. It's possible to do. You just right click and hit insert subtotal on the line below where you wish to put the actual subtotal. Now, one thing I will say about this total is kind of nice. Any price changes will be updated. So it's very dynamic. If you're adding items in where you're inserting lines or you're changing prices or quantities, it will automatically, dynamically adjust that subtotal. You can see that it will place the subtotal below. And again, you can name that subtotal as well. You can call it whatever you want. In this case, it's called paint supplies, subtotal $360. And as you change those, it will automatically reflect in this subtotal price. You can put as many subtotals as you want in the invoice. Just keep adding them for different sections: electrical, plumbing, framing, foundation, what have you. All right, moving on to another function that we've added that should help you is we enable you to go out 4 decimal places for quantity and 6 decimal places for prices. This is very effective if you're selling large quantity tonnage of things as well, where you might want to get down to a very specific price that is extended out greatly. And this will make all the difference in the world. Here you just right click, choose add precision, make sure you're highlighting the line that you wish to change the quantity and price. And once you do that, it's reflected down below at the bottom. You'll see it actually shows an approximation number, the tilde, on the price. And then down below, it shows you the specifics. All right, moving on. We've got insert items and notes on quotes. So this screen is going to, this is also at the invoice and quote. When you right click, you can insert a line item. So as I mentioned before, if you're building a large quote and somebody says, oh, I forgot to add this item to this particular section of the quote, you can do that. Just go up, right click, hit insert line, you're done. Also, if you want the delete line, you can do the same thing. And we're going to also talk about notes, because you can also insert notes as well. You just hit the add note or insert note, and it will put the note below the item that you have selected, or above the item that you, actually it's above the item that you have selected. So if you want on the top line, you just highlight the top line of the invoice, and you can put a note at the top of the invoice if you wish. So here you go. So you do a right click, insert note, and in this case, it's putting a note directly above the item that they were on. And it says enter notes, and then they just type in their text. Now that note will remain in the invoice. It also will show on the receipt and everywhere else that invoice prints. Okay. Also, as I mentioned, you can delete items as well. Just hit the F3 button or right click and select delete line item, and that will take the item out. You do not need approval as a cashier to delete items in a quote or in a non-transacted invoice, right? So they're both the same thing. But there's no reason if somebody puts something on the counter and they say, no, I really don't want that. You don't want to have to get a manager's override for that. That's ridiculous. You haven't done anything yet. So this enables you to, as a cashier, to remove items as a salesperson as well, pretty much until you get it committed and you actually execute that invoice, you can add and delete items to your liking. Purchase by 1,000 board foot and sell by the stick. So this is interesting. So for a while now, we've had the ability to purchase by 1,000 board foot, right? So you just put in the total 1,000 board foot cost, you put in the quantity, and it calculates out both your average or market cost as well as your sales price. And it's automatically calculated. You just set the item up to be purchased this way, and every time you purchase it, it will come up on the purchase order, and it will allow you to change the actual board foot cost. And how you do that is when you set up the item and you click on the MBF field, it will prompt you with put in the thickness, the width, and the length, and then it will figure out the total or the calculation, right? And then here you have the calculated cost. In this case, it's your PO is set to $375. That's an average cost on your PO is going to be $375, and it figures out your last cost, your average cost, your market cost. All of these are shown here on the screen, just as they normally do with 1,000 board foot. It's just a little bit bigger number. Moving on to, again, on the completed line after you've added and made your change to the item, it shows you not only the 1,000 board foot cost, but it shows you the per item cost as well. You'll see down below it's watermarked at $3. That shows you that for the quantity of 100 at a 1,000 board foot cost of $562.50, it's $3 a stick. That is the cost. All right, so now that was for the purchase. So let's go on the sales side. So now there's an opportunity. You'll see there's a second MBF with a checkbox in this first image that you see on the screen. You've got an opportunity to check that box MBF. So the top blue arrow that you see on the image in the top left-hand corner lets you enable this product for 1,000 board foot purchasing. The checkbox down below where you check enables you to set up the 1,000 board foot as a sale, right? You can actually do it in invoicing. So during invoicing, you'll see in this bottom image here, you've got your 1,000 board foot price, and then you also have in the watermark below that under price, you have the price per piece. That's the $12.89 that you see on the screen. So it figures all that out for you. Minimum margin protection. So this is another area of the system that I find very powerful. This is something where, depending on what your policy is at checkout for your cashiers, you may give them the opportunity to change a price, a sales price, right? Now, in a lot of cases, you want to give that opportunity to your salespeople, but maybe the cashiers at the front counter, they may need manager approval. Well, this is a way you can set a minimum margin either across the board or by department level, and you can have it preset to where the cashier cannot sell this item lower than your minimum margin, which is kind of nice because if there's a dent in the item and you don't necessarily want to get approval from a manager because they're not available or what have you, you can just say, yeah, I can discount this item. How's instead of 89 cents, how's 40 cents sound? You know, so you can empower your cashiers to actually sell at lower prices in some cases. Now, there's a report that shows this at the end of the day. But the good news is you're not piercing that threshold of profitability. You're still making a good profit of X amount. You can set it, 25, 30, 35, whatever you want to set it at. And on the screen, it's going to show you your regular price, your minimum allowable price, which is the 40 cents. And then the price entered was a dime. Now, if I'm a manager, I can override it and say, yes, charge them a dime. But if I'm a cashier that does not have override capabilities, all I can do is go down to the minimum allowable price, again, maintaining that profitability for this item. Very powerful feature. There's a lot of questions out there. Do we give cashiers the opportunity to change prices or not? In this case, you can give them a little wiggle room, and you can determine whatever that threshold is. As I mentioned, there is a minimum margin setting under File Setup. You'll see min margin. You can set across the board. In this case, it's set at 30%. Or you can set it at the department level, right? So the department level will actually trump the minimum order quantity, or the minimum margin, rather. So if you set a minimum margin of 30 and you, in this particular item with building materials, you want to go down to 20, for this particular department, it will allow you to go to 20% margin. So again, very powerful feature. If you don't have that set up in Paladin, I would encourage you to do it because maintaining your threshold of profitability, I would think, would be very important, especially in these times. So the next one is custom discounts, trade discounting, if you will, and pricing plans. So in Paladin, if you select a customer and you determined a particular discount for that customer, it will come up automatically, and it's dynamic. So if you change the customer name, it will change it to that person's particular discount, right? If you're setting up trade discounts in your system. When I say trade discounts, I mean things like, they're a painter, they're an electrician, they're a plumber. Based on who they are and what their role is, I'm going to give them a certain discount that's customized to their trade. So that's very possible to do. It's very easy to do in Paladin. And as a matter of fact, you can have where some departments, some items, some classes of items, some suppliers don't discount and others do, right? You can also set net items, right? You can set net in the inventory so that those particular items would never be discounted no matter what kind of a trade discount or custom pricing plan you have, right? If you set it to net. Those items would show up as red with the prices in red. This one shows blue. Red is list price, blue is discounted price, and black is any physically altered price at checkout. Now, back on the pricing plans real quick. So a discount that you have, a store discount or circular or anything like that, is basically a pricing plan. It's the same thing. It's just instead of it's available to everybody, right? That's the difference between a promotion and a trade discount. Promotion is available to everybody that walks in the store, where trade discount is only specified to a particular customer or company. All right, invoice notes, authorized signer, and projects. So if you are doing either a charge or credit card transaction, you have to set up the setting under the proper area. But if you're doing a charge and they are a charge customer, I mean, that's the only way you can do a charge, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be highlighted. So if they are a customer with credit line, this particular customer has $1,000. You can see up in the top left-hand corner under the rewards number. It will automatically prompt for either a memo or a PO number. Any one of these things you can make required. In this case, the PO number is not required, but if you wanted to, you can hard code it into the customer's record and it would always come up, which is kind of a nice thing to do, because if you have a government agency or an educational agency that says, hey, you need to use this PO number, it needs to be on every invoice and on your statement, otherwise we can't pay you. Great, let's hard code that number in. It's good for 6 months, we're good to go. Authorized signers, that's something that you will add to each of your customer records. You can have authorized signers either be required or not be required. And in this case, it's John Smith. And then furthermore, you can have projects tied to these particular customers as well. And in this case, it's a church restoration, and it is required. So if the project that they're working is new and it hasn't been added, you can add a project. You'll need to be a manager to do that, but you may add a new project on the fly as well. If you, as I mentioned briefly when I first showed this slide, if you go to credit card and you have it set appropriately where it says, yes, even for credit card transactions, bring up the PO number, authorized signers, and the projects, that can happen as well. So if that's something that you don't have set and you would like that set, go ahead and call us and we can show you how to activate that. Order manager for lumber. So we've got an opportunity to take a quote and turn it into an order. What's the difference? Well, with orders, you can sell items over a long period of time, right? So if you've got 500 items in your invoice or your quote, you change that to an order. Now it's going to enable you to buy down that quote. Every time the customer comes in and wants to buy something from that order, it will allow you to create a new invoice, and it will restore that with those items being set as sold. So it will never change the original order, but it will show what has been sold and what has yet to be sold. So if you go down and bring up, if you recall a quote and you hit the F5 button, it will change it to an order. And what does that do? Well, it changes the, if you notice another column appears here under each, and it says what was quoted and what was sold, right? So quoted 20, sold 0, quoted 1, sold 0, quoted 10, sold 0. So there's nothing been sold here. Now, what's nice about this order also is you can add items below this that will be able to be impulse items, right? So if they have 10 things on their order and they're coming in to buy the last 3 items and they say, oh, I want this, licorice and these potato chips, you can just scan them right in, right below where it says items below this line are not part of the managed order. All right, when you recall orders, it'll show up and you'll see a little checkbox, a green checkbox. That determines it's an order and not a quote. Again, the difference is a quote is usually you're selling everything at once. An order, you want to do a kind of a buy down quote, if you will. Okay. Moving forward, so the order manager, you can also display open items as well as just items that are available. And in addition to that, you can have it autofill. So if you've got 18, in this case, on the first item here, the paintbrush 2-inch, says I've quoted 20, only sold 2, so I have 18 left. Well, you can just highlight that item and click on F6, and that will autofill the rest of that out. Or you can select everything and hit F6, and it'll autofill everything, and you can sell everything, right? But the nice thing about this is you can display all the items on the original order, and also, or you can just show those items that have been unsold. So kind of a cool feature. So here's the autofill. We're showing the autofill popping in here, and it's going to go ahead and put in 18 to fulfill the balance of what's due to this customer on this order. All right, moving on. So we have order tools, item history. So highlight an item that has been partially or fully sold and click on item history, and it will view the order items sale history. So you'll see the full thing, when it was, how many were sold, what date it was sold, what the invoice was. So you can now go back and look at every instance of where you sold something from this particular order. Okay, so that does it for the orders. So these are special orders. They're a little bit different, right? So special orders are something that you are either ordering a lot of that you don't normally order that much, or you're making a special item that you have to invent, like a custom door, custom window, that sort of thing. And there are a number of different Paladin configuration settings, right, that you can do. In the top right-hand corner, you can see if you go to Paladin configuration file setup and you select the company tab, in that there's a special orders section where you can, number one, enable special orders or not. And then you can do other things, right? In this case, allow special orders to create customers. So you can actually create a new customer during the time where you're creating a special order. Just takes another event out of having to do something extra, right? It just does it while you're creating the order. Can also, in this case, it's forcing the special orders to a large 8.5 by 11 big form, right? And then also you can determine a default deposit as well. In addition, we've added something recently, and that is you can put a default class in for special order items. The reason why this is important is as you put in special orders, you can assign it to a particular class, and by doing so, you can exclude it from different rewards, right? So special orders can be excluded from rewards. All right. Yeah. So that's what's different in special orders. Now, there's a lot to the special order process. Not a lot of work's involved here. You just have to select this as a special order item at invoicing, and it fires off several triggers downstream. Right? It'll create your purchase order, create your item in the inventory, earmark it as never to be ordered on suggested order report. It'll assign it to that particular customer, and it will enable you to take a deposit, and it also shows that item in the inventory as on hold. So it just does a number of different things just by clicking one button. Very powerful feature. If you're not using special orders today and you're doing it some other way, probably an easier way. Take a look at that. Yard order forms. So we have different forms that you can produce, right? We've got half page, full page, hard stock, non-hard stock. We can also assign it to a 2-bin or 2-drawer printer, right? So in the bottom drawer, you have the half page sheets, and the top one you're doing full page invoices on, and you can do that from various trays. We have that in our setup under the network tab. So this will print just yard order items if you wanted to, or you can print all items on your invoice. It's up to you. Typically, most of our stores just say, hey, just print the items that are in the yard. Now, what's nice about this is we've also enabled you to automatically kick a yard order out without the cashier having to know. If there are yard order items, it'll automatically spit out a yard order, which is pretty good, right? You don't have to remember to produce a yard order. It just creates one for the cashier. And that can either print in the yard or at checkout. Delivery order forms is another opportunity. When you've checked out a customer, it gives you an opportunity to print duplicate receipts, full sheet invoice, yard order, and also a delivery order form. So this is the old-fashioned way where you're producing a hard copy, right? The bottom it says received by, delivered by, and you just keep a hard copy trail, right? We also have a delivery scheduler as well, and that delivery scheduler works in conjunction with a mobile tablet, which enables the driver to look up the and map it on the device, gets the location, then they can take a photograph of the load they've dumped and get a signature as well. And all that is sent back to the Paladin system in real time dynamically through a cloud app that we wrote and puts it directly back onto that invoice. So really powerful. Also in the scheduler, you can see where your driver has been and where they have yet to go. And that's all date and time stamped as well. So the mobile to deliver, again, this is the mobile app for that I just described. You just hit schedule delivery, and at that point, it invokes a wizard that you just walk through and answer the questions, right? So under checkout, if you select F10, it's going to say delivery details will be collected during the checkout. And at checkout, it's going to prompt you with three things, right? First one is if you're selecting, obviously, to put it on charge, you can put in your PO number, your authorized signers, and the project address, right? Next is you can put in the delivery truck, right? You might have 3 or 4 different vehicles that you drive. You can determine it. You can put the duration, the date and time stamp it on to when it should be delivered. And then you can also have an email and a phone number in there for the customer. And then in addition to that, you can have a delivery address that may be different than either the main address that you have or the previous delivery address that you have for that customer. So it collects all that information right there at checkout, and then and you can see we've just blown it up here so you can take a quicker, easier look at it. You can put notes in there. And then what happens is it can, if you want, shoot an email to your customer saying, here's your order for the delivery, and here's when its expected delivery date and time is, right? And the delivery address as well. So all this, you can turn this off so you don't actually send them the order, but an email can be sent to the receiving customer. Here's what the tablet might look like, right? Where you've got the mobile to deliver, you can see the different deliveries, and then again, you would just click on anywhere on that line or that little arrow, and it would enable you to bring up the invoice as well as take a photograph, put in notes, back down the delivery quantities, right? And that would automatically produce a credit invoice on the other side in Paladin. So very cool product. You can also look at your mobile delivery scheduler, and that's just under invoice and quote, where you go recall items or recall stored quotes, and you'll see the delivery button up in the top right-hand corner. You'll see your different deliveries. An exclamation point means it's open. Something with a green checkbox would mean that it's been delivered. A blue checkbox means that, oh, they decided to just drive by with their flatbed and pick everything up as opposed to have it delivered. And then you can also produce a report out of this to view it in Excel. Mobile to checkout is it gives you an opportunity to sell from within your store from anywhere in the world at any time. So this is a very powerful tool. It only does checkout, right? Meaning you can't do other stuff in Paladin, right? It is intended to work to give you an ability to sell from anywhere in the world through a mobile connection. You can be out in your yard, you can be at the flea market, you can be in the next state over or out of the country. As long as you have mobile access or mobile connectivity, you can look up customers, you can apply pricing plans, you can store quotes, you can recall quotes, you can check out via an account so they can just put it on charge, or you can take a credit card with the little swiper in the top, or take cash or checks or whatever tender you want. Very, very powerful tool. This device is available in the Paladin store, and so check it out. In addition to that, we have accounts receivables. I think this is just making sure that everybody knows that, of course, if you're putting all this stuff on account, you need to collect the money somehow. So there's a one push button at the end of the month, and that will produce statements. It can put the invoices behind the statements, up to 4 on a page at a time, and then it can also produce an Excel spreadsheet for those getting emailed, or those that are you optionally want to generate this list for, an Excel spreadsheet showing all the different jobs and the subtotals and the total. So very good stuff here. We also, again, we also allow you to do prompt payment discounts if they pay on time, or if they don't pay on time, we can also apply service charges. All right, and that's going to be customized for each account, and how do you want that to appear on their statement? Do you want prompt payment discounts for this customer? Do you want service charges? Do you want past due holds? I mean, these are different things, and you can set per customer. All right, so one thing, we're getting down to the bottom of the slides here. One of our final slides here talks about a coming soon product or feature called the Pick List Report. Again, this is for orders. These are buy down orders. And if you wanted to produce a report, it can just shoot it directly to Excel, show you all the different orders, and generate a pick list so you can pick these items and get them ready for the customer coming by, or deliver them, or however you want to do it. It shows all the outstanding unsold items on the order, right? So it's a great way to fulfill the orders, right? Now this feature, it may show up on some of the customers that have our alpha or beta products. Wait till your next update to come out, because it will be, we've done some changes, made some changes, and perfected a little bit. So that gives you an opportunity to use this pick list then. What does it look like? Well, it produces an Excel spreadsheet. Again, it breaks it down onto all of the available items that are yet to fulfill on the orders. All right, so we have come to the end of our presentation. That's taken a little bit longer than I thought. We've exceeded the 30-minute limit by about 7 or 6.5. So appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. There's other tools that you can see here where you can learn more about these specific products. Also, you can contact customer support if you need help. If there's any questions, feel free to put them in the question box now, and I'll go ahead and answer those. In the meantime, I will tell you, put in a little plug for next webinars on March 9th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and that will be on our tax update with Avalara. So Paladin manages taxes for items, for customers, exemptions, and things of that nature. But Avalara is an incredibly powerful tool that will not only help you apply taxes at checkout, and it's real time with Paladin integrated. So it goes out and it makes sure that the customer has existing tax exempt status and it hasn't expired. It makes sure that specific items are taxed and other items are not taxed. It knows who the customer is checking out, knows everything about them, and it knows everything about the different municipalities, different municipalities, like different counties, different cities where customers are shopping from, that may be very different. So Avalara is nice. It also does your end of year taxes as well. So we'll have to check out that webinar on March 9th. We are going to have Avalara actually do the presentation. I'll kick it off with a short intro, but mainly it'll be about what they offer and the tools they offer. So I do have a question. So the question is, I have many customers that require project names at checkout. Is there a way to have that project address added to the hard copy delivery ticket? So if you put a project name in, that project name I know is printed on the invoice. If it's not printed on the delivery ticket, it certainly can be. I think it may have been, because I've seen this request before. So keep your eyes open for some information coming out about that. If I'll just assume that it is coming, and if it isn't, I'll reach out to you directly, Bryce, and let you know. And That is a good question, though. I know the project names are printed on multiple forms, whether it's on the delivery form. Unless I tested, I couldn't tell you whether it is or isn't. So you can always go into Paladin on our website at paladinpointogsale.com. We have on the top right-hand corner an area where it says websites, and we have multiple different websites you can go to. One of those is our help portal. When you go to the help portal, all the information is there, all the webinars, knowledge-based articles, features, fixes, problems, issues, next webinar, when that's going to happen. All of that information is there. It is available to anybody. You do not need a login and key to get into. It's just out there. We also have retail science, which is a powerful area where we speak of the different ways that you can increase your customer, increase the number of customers coming in your store, increase their spend amounts, different ways that we can share with you how to get more out of your store and more out of your customers. And then we also have the Paladin store as well. There in the Paladin store, you can go ahead and shop for products and services as well. I don't see any more questions, and I want to again just wrap up here by saying thank you so much for attending. This is recorded if you wanted to share it with the rest of the folks in your stores I mentioned earlier, and appreciate your time. I do know that it's kind of crazy out there right now, so seems like things might be getting a little closer to normal. Will they ever be normal again? I don't know. Anyway, regardless, God bless you all, and thanks for attending, and we'll see you next time.